Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, temperatures are set to rise once again through today and especially tomorrow, but plenty of warm and hazy sunshine out there today. Not dry for everyone. There is still one or two showers courtesy of this weak occluded front across the very far northeast of Scotland, and out towards the west, this area of low pressure is bringing a bit more cloud into parts of Northern Ireland and the Irish Sea as we go into this afternoon. So possibly the sunshine turning quite weak and hazy here in particular, but for most, blue skies will prevail with plenty of sunshine, just a little bit of wispy high cloud in places. Now, a warmer day to come compared to yesterday. Temperatures widely in the mid-20s in England and Wales and possibly close to 30 degrees in the London area. But across northern Scotland, still a little bit on the breezy side and quite cool, and there'll still be one or two showers around for Shetland and Orkney in particular, but these won't be as numerous or as heavy as they were on Saturday, so largely dry by this evening here. A largely fine end to the day elsewhere across mainland Scotland too. Notice on the graphic some bits and pieces of blue indicating rain across Northern Ireland and Irish Sea coastal regions of Wales. But don't take the graphics too literally. Any rain we do see through this evening will be very light and intermittent, so many places not seeing much at all. But as we go through the second half of this evening and into tonight, the rain will start to blossom somewhat, so turning slightly more persistent and heavier, particularly across southern and central parts of Scotland. A few millimetres of rain perhaps by the end of the night here. Otherwise, England and Wales remaining quite dry and increasingly warm and humid, and one comfortable night for sleeping compared to last night. Temperatures for some not falling below 18 degrees Celsius. And it's here where we'd like to see a pretty hot day on Monday. Any cloud will be quite thin, so we'll see plenty of sunshine, and temperatures by the afternoon will be into the 30s for some of us, perhaps 35 Celsius in the southeast of England. One or two showers breaking out by the afternoon for Wales and Western England, but the wettest weather across northern Scotland, where it will feel quite disappointingly cool for August.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Welcome to Orla Santi by Domes Resorts, where we're celebrating with an incredible £60,000 to be won. Plus, we'll give you a fine gold bullion bar worth over £5,000. Don't miss your chance to win over £65,000 worth of prizes.
For a chance to win, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pulled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
At the stroke of midnight, the news doesn't stop, and neither do we.
Day in, day out. Forget stuffy late night TV shows. We're giving you a front row ticket to the centre of the political universe.
Because breaking news doesn't wait for the morning.
And neither do we. Join us for one of the most controversial and volatile times of politics in human history.
A very big story.
Big story over here.
You won't get this anywhere else. The Late Show live at midnight, every night.
Only on GB News.
Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howard. This is the show where each week we see what's happening in the world of culture, current affairs and politics.
First we'll say, welcome to the UK. Oh, thank you.
And we're not afraid to use our free speech so that you can use yours.
It's not controversial in the slightest to anyone who hasn't lost their mind.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time,
But I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
The GB News audience is different, it's unique, because they see through the nonsense.
We want to debate with each other. We want to listen and maybe learn.
We have a chat. That's what we do. We try and have a chat.
They'll watch my programme while they're eating their tea, they'll watch breakfast while they're busy getting their kids ready for school.
We want to hear what matters to you, what is news for you.
And what's brought you out here today?
What are the biggest issues affecting this particular area?
The audience are the best thing about GB News.
Their friends, their family. They're people who need to have their voices heard.
They're passionate about the channel, they're passionate about what they believe in.
The one thing about GB News is you get a chance to speak.
Talk to me about why so many people have gathered here today.
Do you want to say something back in return?
The GB News audience is what makes GB News special.
It's incredible to see. They shape our programmes, they shape our output, and they shape our channel.
That's what makes us the fearless champion of Britain.
Good morning and welcome to Sunday with Michael Portillo. In her journal, the American poet Sylvia Plath describes August as the odd, uneven time, the best of the summer gone and the new fall not yet born. On this, the first Sunday of the month, you're most welcome to 2 hours of arts, culture, current affairs and politics. Andy Burnham says that he wants a national care service to match the National Health Service. My panel will discuss the desirability of that. Following the massive incursion of Moroccan migrants into Spain's North African enclave of Ceuta, what might be the consequences for the European Union? Overnight, the United States President, Donald Trump, says that he's cancelled planned strikes on Iran, saying that he took the decision subject to being able to rapidly make a deal. We'll discuss that. The new Prime Minister has pledged to value the hard hat every bit as much as the graduation cap as part of plans to tackle youth unemployment. Has the long-standing push to send half of school leavers to university let down a generation? All of that, and indeed much more. But first, your latest news headlines with Sophia Windsor.
Michael, thank you and good morning. It's just gone 11 o'clock. Your top stories this hour. Donald Trump says he has cancelled a major attack on Iran because a peace deal may be close. The US president made the announcement on Truth Social that he had paused the assault on Tehran, subject to being able to rapidly make a deal, which would include the immediate opening of the Strait of Hormuz and an end to Iran's nuclear threat. Mr. Trump said the decision to cancel the attack had been taken alongside Israel. However, he also warned the Iranian regime that the US remained locked and loaded and ready to go. Iran has not yet responded to the US president's announcement. The new Chancellor has issued a stark warning to supermarkets, urging them to stop price gouging as the Iran war continues to hit prices. John Healey said he will not allow them to take the public for a ride as a result of the Middle East crisis. He said he would be watching closely for any suggestion that customers are being ripped off, either when shopping for essential groceries or when filling up their car at the petrol pump. It comes after the Chancellor confirmed he will deliver his first budget on October the 28th, promising a plan built on what he calls fiscal discipline. 53,000 of the 60,000 migrants who crossed into the small Spanish enclave of Ceuta have now returned to Morocco, according to Spanish authorities. The sudden surge of arrivals have left 86 people dead. It's led to division between some European politicians, with EU ministers due to hold an emergency meeting on Tuesday this week to discuss the situation. It comes amid reports that people smuggling gangs are cutting the price of channel crossings to Britain, hoping to cash in on Europe's latest migration crisis. Traffickers are reportedly offering places on small boats for as little as £500 after the unprecedented surge of the migrants into the Spanish enclave this week. Rupert Lowe has made a public offer to Nigel Farage to work together to unite the right. In a video address posted on X, the Restore Britain leader made a plea to the Reform UK leader to put their differences aside for the sake of the British people. It comes after the results for the Greater Manchester mayor yesterday saw the vote on the right split three ways, with Reform on 21%, Restore on 8.7% and the Tories behind on 7.7%. 28-year-old Josh Kerr has delighted home crowds in Scotland by claiming gold in the Commonwealth Games. The world record holder blazed down the home straight to clinch first place in the men's mile race at the raucous Scotstoun Stadium last night. Kerr crossed the line in 3 minutes, 54.12 seconds, almost 8 seconds slower than when running the fastest time ever for the mile in London last month. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Michael.
Thank you very much, Sophia Winslow. So far from seeking to reduce public spending, the new Prime Minister seems determined to take on responsibility for the state for social care. He says that he wants it to match the National Health Service. Does he mean long waiting lists, ballooning expenditure, care scandals and armies of highly paid bureaucrats who take no responsibility? His supporters say he's the man to bring about change after 22 failed attempts at reform. But maybe those efforts failed for a good reason. Joining me now is my panel, the Daily Mail journalist Lettice Bronowski and the Labour peer Baroness Hayter. Welcome to you both.
Good morning.
Lettice, do you yearn to have a national social care service to match the National Health Service?
Well, I mean, after the list of things you just read off there, I don't think we need to be matching that. There are a lot of faults right now with the National Health Service, and I don't think necessarily nationalising means improving. You know, just because you change who might sign the checks at the end of the day, you've got to have real fundamental change within our adult social care system, and you know, it is bad right now. You've got, even in spring 2024, you had 400,000 people just waiting for the assessment in their adult social care. So there are big changes to be done. And Andy Burnham himself has a sort of personal stake in this. His father has Alzheimer's, so he's seen firsthand probably the cost of it and the implication it can have on maybe a primary care holder. So there's a lot of changes that need to happen. I mean, nationalising the whole system, where's the money going to come from? That's my main question here.
You mentioned there are 400,000 cases awaiting assessment, but presumably they're awaiting assessment by state institutions.
Awaiting assessment to, go by state institutions.
I mean, that bit of the system is already within the national sector.
And it's already not doing a good enough job.
Yes.
So by bringing in more to the national sector, it's only going to overwhelm the system further. So, yeah, as you say, if the current system isn't even working, but you want to bring more under state control, how are you going to improve it at this point?
Do you let us not value a mixed economy, which is what the social care system is? I mean, some of it is provided by local authorities, some of it is provided in the private sector. And many people over decades have thought that maybe the National Health Service ought to be more of a mixed economy where, you know, we raise money in various ways and we buy services in various ways from various people. In other words, I mean, there's an argument the National Health Service should be more like the National Care Service, should be more like the care service that we have rather than the other way around.
I mean, there are pros and cons of both. When you look at the National Health Service, I do think that we take it for granted a lot of the time, and people underestimate how much it actually costs to have the medical care that we get and, you know, free to the point of need. That is a complete luxury. But then when we look at our care system at the moment, our social care system, it is quite literally bankrupting some families, because the point at which you start paying, which is only 23,000. If you've got more than that, then you have to sort of pay for a lot of your own social care. Isn't that much? And you see families being bankrupted trying to spend the money that they need to get there. So, you know, there has to be some sort of balance. And a lot of the question is, what sort of system will we take on? Would we take on a system, if Andy Burnham does want to change it, like Germany, where they pay a sort of 2% into it, and, you know, that 2% will then go to you being cared, and if you've got no children, then you'll have to pay slightly more on that 2%? Or will it be a system more like Scotland, where some things are free and other things you have to pay for again?
Diane Hayter, what is the need to do something about it? We have existed with what we have at the moment for decades and decades. And it's true that some people come out of it badly. But is it an urgent need to change this thing?
It's very, very urgent, and it almost doesn't matter who delivers it. The issue is going to be funding. You know, there's about 500,000 people in residential care at the moment, and a third of those, that it says, you know, are self-paying. Now, this is about 100,000 a year. So this is what families are having to do, and about a third of the people in residential care are paying that. But in addition to that, there are about 1 million people in their own homes where their unpaid families are looking after them full-time. I don't just mean a bit here and a bit there. So if you're going to start funding it, and that to me seems the biggest issue, you have to think of the third of the people at the moment in residential who are having to pay their own way, and 1 million people in their homes. So the issue, I think, Michael, is what you've touched on. Can you do the same as the NHS, free at the point of use? My guess is probably you can't. It will have to be a mixed economy. It will have to be a combination of some paid for. I think there will have to be some co-payments. I think there will have to be the private and the charity sector involved. And my judgment is that an insurance firm, the insurance world will have to come in as well. But it can only do that if the state will put a cap on it. Otherwise, it's uninsurable.
Those people who are paying at the moment, Diane, they're paying because they've got money. I mean, that follows. They couldn't be paying if they didn't have money. And I wonder, I mean, these are people, the argument tends to be made that people are having to sell their houses at the end of their lives in order to pay for social care. The question is, why is that a wrong thing to do? The argument comes from the next generation that thought it was going to inherit a house, that had built expectations about what it was going to derive from that older generation. But, you know, we save for a rainy day, and for some of us a rainy day comes, and then we have to cash in what we've saved.
I personally have no difficulty with paying after one's died, or, you know, the family paying, because what's happening at the moment, and I know people because my own husband is in full-time care, and I know other people, one of my colleagues has had to sell his house to pay for his wife's care. So actually people are having to find that money now, or to remortgage their house. Now, I think a better way is to say that the house that the person who's gone into care owns can be sold after their death, or the money going after their death. Because what you need when you need care, you need it then and there. You know, you can't wait. So I do think a system of paying later is acceptable. I realise that means paying less on to your, to your children, but so be it. Because I have to say, for those of my generation, I'm really sorry to you youngsters, but those of us who bought our house a long time ago, they've gone up in value. Nothing that we did to them. So we've been very lucky. And I do think, you know, when I die, that it's quite right that the house that I bought, and I'm going to pay with a big mortgage, admittedly, should go to pay for my care. But that may only work for a few years. That may only work for a decade, because there is my generation where the house inflation did give us a lot of capital. So these are complicated. I think the most important thing is none of us think there's one simple solution. I think it should be delivered locally, unlike the NHS, but it may have to be funded in a number of different ways.
That is what surprises me, actually almost horrifies me, is at a time when there was quite a consensus that we needed to debate the size of the welfare bill, and even people on the left were saying the welfare bill is too high and we need to bring it down. What we're actually contemplating is a massive extension of the welfare state.
Well, exactly, and this is sort of the conversation you said in your remarks earlier, that it was the 22nd review that we've had here. This has been going on for ages, and the one big criticism of Keir Starmer is that he failed to deliver on these big things, and in particular on things like cuts to the welfare bill. He put it forward multiple times, different things where we could come back, and then there was U-turn after U-turn. And so you slightly think that maybe Andy Burnham is trying to change that around, trying to say adult social care, this is going to be my big thing. It's not the first time he's brought this forward. In 2009, when he was the health secretary, he tried to bring this forward then, and it was branded as a death tax then, a bit like what you were talking about, and ultimately it never came through. But this, for him, has been a sort of 15-year endeavour.
Are the Tories in a difficult spot here? Mind you, I think Reform UK as well. Because, you know, they're saying that we could look forward to a future of lower taxes if we control public spending. But there's a danger that the Tories and Reform UK, for that matter, are going to get lured into this, as I say, massive extension of the welfare state.
I mean, well, they've had that conversation where they've been, the Tories and the Lib Dems have been invited to have that conversation with Andy Burnham and try and make it a cross-party decision. I do think that was a little bit false-faced of Andy Burnham, because ultimately this is going to come down to something about how do we fund it. It's going to cost around £18 billion, they think. And ultimately, those parties ideologically will always disagree on how you fund things, and the Tories will never raise taxes, or they won't say that they'll raise taxes. So really, I don't think they'll be able to come to a cross-party decision, and ultimately that's where the issue is going to lie on this. But whether Andy Burnham will still be able to push it through on his own, I guess that's the main question here.
Dan, we've been up this hill 22 times and been marched down it again. Might not a wise man, and I'm referring here to the Prime Minister, say, if 22 attempts have been made before, why should I make a 23rd? I mean, it's tempting to want to be a Superman who achieves what 22 attempts have not succeeded in achieving. But you might also think, why did all those attempts fail?
They failed for money. Anyone who did the mathematics realised this was going to be immensely expensive. I think we've got to do it. I don't think there's a choice. I mean, I remember, didn't Boris also say, I've got an oven-ready deal on social care? And, of course, then they get in and the Treasury says, do you realise how much it's going to cost? I mean, I hope you're wrong in that I do think the only way we can go forward is a cross-party. I was sorry that Kemi Badenoch, who welcomed having a talk, but then said, but we have to start from the basis there'll be no tax increase. Well, it seems to me that's not genuine talk. If you're going to have genuine talks, you can't go in with your red lines before. So I hope she rethinks that, because, you know, I forgot which way. I think the Tories called ours a death tax, and we called theirs a dementia tax. So we're both guilty. You know, neither of us should have done that, because this is long term. This is actually your future. I'm close enough to getting this need now. We've got to work out that when you're old, that you have the care that you need, and we've got to do this. So I think it's non-negotiable.
But I will also say that it was Keir Starmer who also brought this in as a manifesto pledge and said, you know, we're going to really look into this. And a bit like what you say, he clearly got in there, had a conversation with the Treasury, and then put it under another review by Louise Casey and said it will come out at the end of the 2020s. I mean, that in itself, in my view, is not doing what you've come in to promise to do. Now, Andy Burnham's brought that forward, so hopefully we'll get this review by next year. But still, why are we still in this stage of constantly reviewing and over-reviewing?
One of the things there is a rumour today of funding it through a 10% death tax. So this would be a 10% levy on what every person in the country leaves to the next generation. I assume that would not lead to the abolition of inheritance tax. Someone could imagine that the marginal rate of inheritance tax would become 50%. Does that seem a good way to fund it?
No, I don't think so at all. Not only for the sort of weight of you would have when you lose a loved one, you would have to be going through that stage of grief, and then you would have to be going, I know you said you'd be happy to sell your house, but I sometimes have this conversation with my parents, and it's much easier for the one who is leaving the world to say, oh, that's fine, I don't mind, you sell everything, it'll be fine. But those who are still staying here, you've got the grief of losing your parent, losing your loved one, and then you've got to be calculating these things, selling these houses and giving huge amounts of money, whether it's through inheritance tax or through a death tax to the government.
But are you saying the solution is the state again?
I think it'll be up to Andy Burnham to ultimately decide how he would want to fund that.
I was rather seeking your opinion.
I know.
The state?
I don't think they should nationalise it. I do think it has to be a mixed economy at this stage, and I think there has to be a way for people to fund a bit on their own, because there's no money.
All right, panel. I'll come to you first when we come back, Diane. And indeed, Lettuce Bronowski and Diane Hayter will be back at noon, and they're then going to be debating the devolution of powers to mayors and regions. Today is your final chance to get tickets to join us for a day to celebrate Britain.
Here at GB News, we made a promise to tell your stories.
And on the 6th of August, we're marking 5 years of doing exactly that.
Celebrate with us by having your say. Join in the debates live on TV and radio.
And meeting your favourite presenters across the country, from Leeds to Aberdeen, from Belfast to Barry Island.
Plus, join me in Essex for our biggest live show of the year. Scan the QR code or visit gbnews.com/celebrate. Terms and conditions apply.
Now that date is approaching. You have less than 24 hours remaining to grab your ticket. And for more information, scan the QR code on the screen or go to gbnews.com/celebrate. Coming up, Italy has introduced extra checks on passengers arriving from Spain, despite the EU Schengen travel agreement, which guarantees freedom of movement within the European Union. This is Sunday with Michael Portillo, only on GB News.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there. With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again.
To start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Here at GB News, we made a promise to tell your stories.
And on the 6th of August, we're marking 5 years of doing exactly that.
Celebrate with us by having your say. Join in the debates live on TV and radio.
And meeting your favourite presenters across the country, from Leeds to Aberdeen, from Belfast to Barry Island.
Plus, join me in Essex for our biggest live show of the year. Scan the QR code or visit gbnews.com/celebrate. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howard. This is the show where each week we see what's happening in the world of culture, current affairs and politics.
First we'll say, welcome to the UK.
And we're not afraid to use our free speech so that you can use yours.
It's not controversial in the slightest to anyone who hasn't lost their mind.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. Following the massive rush of Moroccan immigrants into the Spanish North African colonial territory of Ceuta, Italy has imposed restrictions on arrivals from Spain, despite its obligations to sustain free movement under the EU's Schengen agreement. The Italian Foreign Minister, Antonio Tajani, pinned the blame explicitly on Spain's migration policy, calling it profoundly wrong. The Spanish Foreign Minister, José Manuel Albades, hit back, labelling such behaviour as unbecoming of a partner and a friendly country from which we expect European solidarity, not partisan demagoguery. Wow. So, is free movement within the European Union under threat? Now, just before I discuss that further, we're going to go back to Ceuta, where Dougie Beattie is able to join us live from the coast there. Dougie, what's the latest?
Well, Michael, yes, quite the argument has started inside Europe. I'm actually standing overlooking the border here between Ceuta and Morocco. Now you can just see the border there on the Spanish side, and then just beyond that is the Moroccan border. Now that takes you into North Africa. You can go to the Middle East anywhere from there, and lots of people are saying, no, but we had an agreement with Mallorca. Yesterday we seen thousands and thousands of immigrants here, Michael, and they were Sudanese. They were of all races, colours and creeds that were in amongst those 60,000 that breached the border. Now 48,000 of them went home within the first 16 hours because the Spanish basically denied them water, denied them food, denied them shelter. They decided they were better off on the other side of the border. But today, the Spanish military are playing the best game of hide and seek with these immigrants that you've ever seen. And they've started, instead of concentrating on the border, they're out into all these areas, the seafront, onto the rocks, everywhere, looking for these immigrants. And to tell you how forceful they were, even immigrants that were hurt in the crossing that were took to hospital yesterday, we seen the vehicles outside, and very shortly we seen those people that were medically looked after and being pushed back across this border behind us. Now it's caused quite a round, questions asked in the European Union, but for me standing here, I am looking, and Europe is pushing anyone that has not come from outside or inside the EU back out across the border. And I sit and I listen to our politicians in Britain saying we can't push them back because of all sorts of legal ramifications, and they might be refugees needing medical assistance. And over the last 2 days here, there are massive shortages because everywhere is still closed, and the Spanish are determined that they're going out.
Very fascinating report. Thank you very much to Dougie Beattie. Now, the online commissioning editor for Foreign Affairs of The Spectator, Lisa Hazeldine, joins me. It's quite interesting, this, because it seems to me that these people who entered Ceuta don't actually represent much of a threat to the European Union. Ceuta is not in Schengen. They also cannot get to the European Union. They can be prevented, and there are checks in place. And anyway, now it turns out that nearly all of them have gone back. And yet this monumental row between European nations, I suspect this goes back to the Spanish amnesty, because Spain earlier in the year said that those who are undocumented migrants could regularise their position and would be given 1-year work permits. And other countries in Europe who have less left-wing governments than Spain has at the moment have got very browned off by that.
I think that's totally correct, Michael, because I think this amnesty that Spain introduced made it very easy for the sort of undocumented migrants that were already in Spain to kind of be granted permission to stay. And the trouble with the Schengen zone is, of course, that once you're within it, you can move freely around all these European countries, basically without any kind of checks or kind of idea, really, of where these people are going, which in and of itself is fine. That's exactly what it was created for. But when you have countries like Germany, for example, who have had several years now where failed asylum seekers have committed crimes, that is becoming quite sort of sticky political issue for successive governments. And then you also have countries like Italy, with Giorgia Meloni, who's kind of been leading the force on criticising Spain on this, who have elections coming up where migration is probably going to be quite a big issue in that election. That kind of, I think, also explains why there's been such a furore, such anger towards Spain for this amnesty, and then also kind of this uproar around what's happened in Ceuta.
It's quite interesting because Spain now represents both ends of the spectrum. That is to say, it has made immigration very easy. It has provided a magnet to immigration by having this amnesty. But also, in Ceuta, it has been at the other end of things. It has literally starved the immigrants out of Ceuta, and that's why they're going back to Morocco. So it's quite an interesting country. It represents these two extremes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it both shows how the external borders of the EU can sort of work effectively, that there is no way for these migrants really to easily get from Ceuta onto mainland Spain. I think the concern from a lot of the countries who have criticised Spain and how this whole situation has come about is that they're saying that it essentially sets an example, gives them impetus to try, whether it's through this route or through other routes. And I think that's really kind of what this is about. I think there's
actually just the pictures, I think, are terrifying to European Union nations, because this sort of mass migration presumably could be staged in lots of different places. And you know, these images travel around the world, and with the help of people traffickers, there must be other vulnerable points in the European Union external borders where this could be tried.
Yeah, absolutely. So to your point around sort of the images of sort of 60,000 people sort of flooding into this territory, I think for a lot of people in Europe that brings back scenes reminiscent of the 2015 sort of migration crisis, where you sort of had a lot of asylum seekers trying to claim asylum from places like Syria, that kind of thing, which again kind of was really difficult political point, and that is something that there is still sort of consequences of in Europe. And yeah, there are other weak points. If you look along kind of the eastern flank, Belarus has been staging this kind of a type of hybrid warfare, I suppose you could call it, whereby they've been funneling illegal migrants into through the border into their shared borders with Poland, that in particular, as well as Lithuania and Latvia. And those countries have really put a lot of effort into strengthening their borders with Belarus, precisely for that reason, kind of a way to destabilise sort of countries within the European Union. So yeah, and I think it's an issue I think that will rumble on.
Will Schengen survive? Is Schengen under any sort of threat at the moment? Yesterday, the First Minister of Gibraltar was arguing very strongly that what Italy had done was not contrary to Schengen. They hadn't, pulled down the shutters or anything like that. But they are conducting checks. And as far as I can see, that is contrary to Schengen. You're meant to just wander through, waving your passport as you go to show that you've come from an EU country, etc., etc. So what they're doing, I think, is contrary to Schengen. Is Schengen under threat?
I think Schengen is under threat. I wrote about this for The Spectator last summer because, curiously, compared to this summer, where there aren't actually that many countries yet that have sort of brought in these temporary border controls. Last summer, there were double digits of European countries that had very specifically brought in temporary border controls with each other, specifically because of this issue of migration. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see whether or not that happens again. These temporary border controls have to be renewed every few months, and countries have to sort of justify, the reason for it. But I do think that the increasing frequency with which this is happening, and particularly when you have countries like Italy calling for Spain to be kicked out of the Schengen zone, I think really does put it under threat. It's becoming more brittle.
The reason you can argue that it's not contrary to Schengen, I suppose, at the moment, is that Schengen has provision for emergencies. But then the question is whether the emergency powers are being abused in ways that were not envisaged by those who drafted the Schengen Agreement.
Exactly, and there's no limit on how frequently these temporary border controls can be sort of renewed, essentially. So even though they might only be in place for 3 months, you can then sort of extend them for another 6, and that can just keep rolling. So, yeah, there is that question of essentially temporary in everything but name, really. And so are they going to... Is this going to become a more permanent situation? I think is something that's going to be something for the leaders of those EU countries to figure out.
Something that quite interests me is that when I was dealing with ministers in the European Union, of course, being part of the European Union in those days, it never really bothered me what the politics were of the other ministers, whether they were left or right, because you were just sort of doing European business together. But here, there seems to be a very clear division between left and right. And indeed, Spain, which I would argue is probably the most left-wing government in Europe at the moment, is seeing a situation where the right-wing countries are sort of ganging up on it and giving it a jolly good bash. And by the way, one can also extend this thought outside Europe, because Donald Trump very frequently gives Spain a jolly good bash for what he sees as its very left-wing policies. So this seems to me to be a little bit of a breakdown in European solidarity from what I was used to.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think, particularly with the case of Spain, I think this is probably kind of the latest infraction, as it were, because Spain, for example, has clashed in recent months, years, with other European countries and with Trump, of course, on the issue of defence. For example, so Spain is Pedro Sanchez is essentially the only European leader who's refusing to try and meet these new targets on defence spending. So I think this, I suppose, is sort of one piece of a bigger picture whereby Spain is not really... It's not on the same wavelength as a lot of the other countries in the European Union at the moment, and that's a clash that is sort of, I think, really also playing out here. I think people are venting a lot of frustrations.
Very, very briefly, any idea how this happened? I mean, was it a social media storm in Ceuta? Were the Moroccans angry about Spain's position about their claim to the Southwest Sahara? What triggered it, do you think?
Very good question. I don't think we quite know yet exactly, definitively, but I suspect it's a mixture of all of this. Some of the reports that you read say that there have been sort of Moroccan Guards officials who are sort of actively encouraging people to sort of make that swim. That also could just be on an anecdotal, personal level as opposed to kind of any official policy. So I think at the moment it's slightly difficult to unpick, but I suspect there will definitely be several factors, including social media as well as kind of broader geopolitics and kind of diplomacy as well.
All very interesting. Let's continue to investigate. Lisa Hazeldine, thank you very much for being with us. Coming up, the United States President, Donald Trump, announced that the Board of Peace reached an agreement for the complete disarmament of Hamas in Gaza. We'll discuss that. This is Sunday with Michael Portillo, only on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, temperatures are set to rise once again through today and especially tomorrow, but plenty of warm and hazy sunshine out there today. Not dry for everyone. There is still one or two showers courtesy of this weak occluded front across the very far northeast of Scotland, and out towards the west, this area of low pressure is bringing a bit more cloud into parts of Northern Ireland and the Irish Sea as we go into this afternoon. So possibly the sunshine turning quite weak and hazy here in particular, but for most, blue skies will prevail with plenty of sunshine, just a little bit of wispy high cloud in places. Now, a warmer day to come compared to yesterday. Temperatures widely in the mid-20s in England and Wales and possibly close to 30 degrees in the London area. But across northern Scotland, still a little bit on the breezy side and quite cool, and there'll still be one or two showers around for Shetland and Orkney in particular, but these won't be as numerous or as heavy as they were on Saturday, so largely dry by this evening here. A largely fine end to the day elsewhere across mainland Scotland too. Notice on the graphic some bits and pieces of blue indicating rain across Northern Ireland and Irish Sea coastal regions of Wales. But don't take the graphics too literally. Any rain we do see through this evening will be very light and intermittent, so many places not seeing much at all. But as we go through the second half of this evening and into tonight, the rain will start to blossom somewhat, so turning slightly more persistent and heavier, particularly across southern and central parts of Scotland. A few millimetres of rain perhaps by the end of the night here. Otherwise, England and Wales remaining quite dry and increasingly warm and humid, a more uncomfortable night for sleeping compared to last night. Temperatures for some not falling below 18 degrees Celsius. And it's here where we're likely to see a pretty hot day on Monday. Any cloud will be quite thin, so we'll see plenty of sunshine, and temperatures by the afternoon will be into the 30s for some of us, perhaps 35 Celsius in the southeast of England. One or two showers breaking out by the afternoon for Wales and Western England, but the wettest weather across northern Scotland, where it will feel quite disappointingly cool for August.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
To all of you who voted for GB News to win at the Trick Awards for the 4th year in a row.
The winner is GB News.
Thank you so much for voting for us. It's because of you that we're so proud to be the People's Channel, and it's because of you that we are Britain's news channel.
It's voted for the people who watch us.
Well, we've got the best viewers in the world, haven't we? The most loyal viewers.
Thank you.
Time for the Great British Giveaway. Time is ticking on your chance to win £60,000 in tax-free cash and a real gold bar worth over £5,000. Don't miss out on this. Hayley Sparks has the details.
One person is guaranteed to win over £65,000 worth of gold and cash. And that person could be you. You could be our latest Great British Giveaway winner and join our exclusive list of giveaway champions. First of all, we want to give you a ton of tax-free cash. £60,000 in tax-free cash that you could use however you like. Treat your family, treat your friends, or treat yourself to a luxury 5-star holiday somewhere like here, all as Santi by Domes Resorts. Plus, you'll also receive a fine gold bar worth over £5,000. Don't miss your chance to win over £65,000 worth of prizes.
For a chance to win, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. Overnight, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, says he's cancelled planned strikes on Iran, saying he took the decision subject to being able to rapidly make a deal. Earlier this week, the President said that the Board of Peace had reached agreement for the complete disarmament of Hamas and other armed groups in Gaza. The President described that deal as historic. The journalist and Middle East expert Emily Schrader joins me now. Hello, Emily. Welcome to GB News.
Great to be here.
What chance do you think that the Israelis could possibly believe that Hamas was going to be disarmed and that Israel, would then withdraw from Gaza?
Absolutely zero chance that Israel believes this. We've seen this same movie we've seen many, many times before. Unfortunately, this is how it's been for the last few decades dealing with Hamas. Ceasefire after ceasefire, what we view as a ceasefire, they view as what's called hudna in Arabic, which is a temporary pause in fighting in order for them to regroup. And that's exactly what we're seeing with this. It will be, if it continues as is, it will be a rebranding of Hamas. They'll shuffle their names around and they'll maybe call themselves something else. But at the end of the day, we're talking about arms being held in the hands of some kind of Palestinian authority inside of Gaza. And that's just not something that Israel can accept. It's too much of a risk for after everything that we've experienced and everything that we've seen. So this is not a realistic option. I know President Trump loves to call every deal he makes historic, but I don't think that that's actually the case in this scenario. And furthermore, we've already seen Hamas renege on their promise to fulfill some of the elements of the ceasefire, both the original 20-point plan, as well as what we've seen just in the past 24 to 72 hours. Hamas initially said, yes, we will disarm. And then they're saying we'll only disarm after Israel withdraws. Well, that just ain't going to happen.
We understand then Hamas's motivations. You've just explained them. But why does President Trump keep announcing things which really turn out to be improbable, unachievable? What good does that do him?
Well, it's impossible for me to say, none of us are inside the minds of President Trump, but this is his pattern. It's something that he's known to do. He's made grandiose exclamations about nearly every action he has taken militarily, whether it pertains to the Middle East or not. Some of them have been good steps, some of them have not. But regardless, he brands everything as being a historic achievement and success. Don't forget, after the initial ceasefire that was proposed with Gaza, the situation in Gaza, he claimed he had solved 3,000 years of conflict in the Middle East. And as we see, that most certainly is not the case. Now, unfortunately, if he actually did, I'll be the first person to sign up and give him credit. But we're not at that point yet, and we're not even close. So I think it's actually damaging because it creates a deterrent for the people who actually need to deal with some of these sinister forces in the region, including the Islamic Republic of Iran and all its proxies. It's very discouraging to the Iranian people as well, who are facing the Islamic Republic to be told, oh, actually there's already been a regime change, when very clearly that's not the case. We see people being executed every single day that this conflict continues.
Well, let's switch to that Iranian conflict. So the president postponed bombardment, looking for rapid progress towards the two things that matter are the opening of the Straits of Hormuz and a declaration by Iran that it's not going to move towards nuclear weapons. Does either one of those seem the least bit likely?
Absolutely not. It's the same situation that we've seen over the past few months. It doesn't really matter what the Islamic Republic says they will do right now. First of all, who is the Islamic Republic right now? I mean, we have a supreme leader that no one's heard from, that no one's seen, who most likely, in my opinion, is probably not with us anymore, certainly not mentally, if he's even still alive at all. President Trump himself said he's, quote, 90% dead, whatever that means. So even if they say something, we don't really have any way of enforcing that because we don't even know who's really calling the shots. And if it's the IRGC's Vahidi calling the shot, then most certainly we cannot abide by anything that the Islamic Republic says. This is a genocidal regime that seeks to eliminate not only the state of Israel, but the entire Western world. They've been very open about it from 79 through today, and we would be fools to not take that seriously. So I know for whatever reason, President Trump wants to delay what seems to be the inevitable confrontation with the Islamic Republic. There are probably a million reasons why that might be the case on this particular day, but it's definitely not because the Islamic Republic has suddenly decided that they're going to make a deal and that they've seen the light of day and that suddenly now everything's going to be different with opening the Strait of Hormuz and also surrendering that 400 kilograms of highly enriched uranium.
Is it worth reminding ourselves that the Straits of Hormuz were open before the United States attacked Iran?
I think it's definitely worth reminding everyone that this was the case. I think it was a strategic mistake on the part of the United States not to deal with that first. I think if we're going to work together with the United States as Israel, then Israel should have been responsible for the targeted assassinations that were carried out on some of the other major strategic sites, perhaps the ballistic missile capabilities, maybe nuclear sites as well, along with the United States. But the United States should have taken on the Strait of Hormuz from day one. They should have foreseen that this would have been the key lever for the Islamic Republic to pull because they can't defeat the United States militarily, not even close. There's no question. So what can they do? They can hold the world hostage over things like energy. And that is not something that the international community or the United States should accept in any capacity.
Emily Schrader, I'm most grateful to you for that update and for joining me on GB News this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Coming up, the new Prime Minister has pledged to value the hard hat every bit as much as the graduation cap as part of his plans to tackle youth unemployment. This is Sunday with Michael Portillo, only on GB News.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hi there. The hot, sunny and dry theme continues across most of the Mediterranean through the next few days. There will be a few isolated thunderstorms, particularly for Portugal on Monday, but elsewhere across the Mediterranean, barely a cloud in the sky for many coastal regions, and it will feel very hot in that strong August sunshine. Temperatures comfortably into the 30s and approaching 40 degrees Celsius in the hottest spots. The outlook for the rest of the week, well, generally the settled sunny theme continues with temperatures once again in the high 30s for some.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, Charlie, as most of the viewers know, I would be involved in agriculture. This isn't quite agriculture. It's quite close to it, the cousins of. A lot of things that go on in agriculture are on display here. Thousands of people coming to this site, Ragley Hall, just about 45 minutes out of Birmingham.
We are the modern ruralists, and here today we have the craft yard. We've got 9 different crafts, all demonstrating what they're up to. Here we have the wheelwrights, and they're bonding a wheel here. So this is an ancient craft that's been going for about. Barney Murray's a bit of a legend, quite frankly. He's the national champion, master dry stone waller, comes from North Wales, and he's a bit of a Thor lookalike. So he's quite popular.
GB News, the People's Channel. GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Now at 16 minutes past 8, the annual bike ride from Yorkshire to London is taking place today, aiming to honour the legacy of the Batley and Spen Labour MP Jo Cox, who was murdered by a far-right terrorist in June of 2016.
Well, the bike ride aims to champion a cause she was passionate about, as this year marks the 10th anniversary of her tragic death.
Kim, if we can just start with you, what is your sister's legacy?
Well, there's so much that we've got to be proud of that's been done in Jo's name. It's just been 10 years since she was murdered, and what has kept us going as a family has been the way that so many amazing people, including people like this amazing man, have done things in Jo's name to show what our country is really about. And you've got all these amazing people today from all different backgrounds, all walks of life, celebrating the things that we have in common, not agreeing on everything.
GB News, the People's Channel. Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
It's a difficult question. Honestly, I don't think I would at this rate, because I think the government tracks, when we say we're fighting for Britain, what are we actually fighting for? The concept of Britain, I don't think exists anymore. When I look at Britain, when I go outside, it doesn't seem to be very British. And I think the core demographic of the people who would normally fight, these white working class boys who, you know, have been fighting for Britain, who we expect just to sacrifice their life in a fight, you know, they've been demonised for decades and decades by the government, by our education system, by the media. Economically, they've been disadvantaged. So why would we expect them to risk their lives when we've demonised them for so long and took them for granted for so long? And this concept of Britain fighting for the British government, you know, the British government has betrayed us.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. The new Prime Minister has pledged to value the hard hat every bit as much as the graduation cap as part of his plans to tackle youth unemployment. Well, I wonder what my panel think about all this. Rejoining me, the Daily Mail journalist Lettice Bronowski and the Labour peer, Baroness Hayter. Welcome back again. Diane, there was the ambition established under Tony Blair, which I think was achieved, that half of school leavers should go on to university. I think implicitly that's now being abandoned. Was it the right thing to do?
Well, we have to confess first, the three of us have all been to university.
We have.
So we've got to be very careful that we don't somehow devalue people from my background, which is a much more working class background, getting to university. So we shouldn't be saying it's bad to do that. But I do think we ought to be looking much more vocational, because we need to train people for the jobs of the future. And those are going to be technical. They're going to be highly specialist. They're going to be less of the history that you did, the sociology that I did, and actually they're going to be technical. So I think it's great that we're going to push people or encourage people or help people to get a qualification that will be good for them and their earning, but to be good for the society as well.
Lettice, someone the other day came up with this idea that the jobs that may survive AI are the ones that involve you washing your hands at the end of your job. So when you think about that, that's, you know, working with your hands, but also working in things like healthcare and social care and so on. Do you think that the change in technology has given a strong extra impetus to this move, which might have been the right thing to do in any case?
I definitely think so. I think that university will always be a place where people can go if you really need it. If you're going to become a lawyer or a doctor, or even probably in a more technical base to study things like coding or to study AI on a more technical level. But I do believe, and I studied history at university, but the humanities side of it is not necessarily, you don't necessarily need that degree. I loved my time at university. I'll forever, you know, take it as a privilege, but I've now come away with a phenomenal amount of debt. And I think as a student going into university, that is not explained to you well enough. And now I'm definitely struggling to pay back that debt. I'm not actually sure when I will ever pay back that debt. And it just keeps on rising.
Diane, rather like the previous subject, the question is why this hasn't been done before. There was a very good Secretary of State for Education under the Conservatives called Ken Baker, and 40 years ago he was saying what we need is parity of esteem for different outcomes for young people. So in other words, if you had a technical vocation, that should be respected as much as another person who chose to go to university. I was Employment Secretary more than 30 years ago, and the agenda was the same then. Why can we not move this mountain?
I have a fear that we're in some way making the mountain harder to move. We have quite a divide now between people who can work from home and people who can't, what you call the hand washing. But actually it's very similar. And I have a horrid feeling that so much is decided by people who can work from home, in other words, people who work on their laptops or whatever. And actually we need more decision makers from the people who do things themselves. But that is a big change to make at the top of all businesses. We've got to respect our own employees.
Sorry, I have to interrupt your letters. One of the problems with having a presenter of my age is that I've seen it all go round time and time before. Thank you very much, Sir. Letters, Bronowski and Baroness Hayter, they'll be back in the second half. They are going to be discussing whether the panel and whether the government believes in devolving powers to mayors and regions. On Wednesday, small boats brought 752 migrants to Britain, the largest number this year in a day. Stefan Kyriazis will be here. He's reviewing Carman and Cyrano and how are Britain's farmers coping with the heat. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, temperatures are set to rise once again through today and especially tomorrow, but plenty of warm and hazy sunshine out there today. Not dry for everyone. There is still one or two showers courtesy of this weak occluded front across the very far northeast of Scotland, and out towards the west, this area of low pressure is bringing a bit more cloud into parts of Northern Ireland and the Irish Sea as we go into this afternoon. So possibly the sunshine turning quite weak and hazy here in particular, but for most, blue skies will prevail with plenty of sunshine, just a little bit of wispy high cloud in places. Now, a warmer day to come compared to yesterday. Temperatures widely in the mid-20s in England and Wales and possibly close to 30 degrees in the London area. But across northern Scotland, still a little bit on the breezy side and quite cool, and there'll still be one or two showers around for Shetland and Orkney in particular, but these won't be as numerous or as heavy as they were on Saturday, so largely dry by this evening here. A largely fine end to the day elsewhere across mainland Scotland too. Notice on the graphic some bits and pieces of blue indicating rain across Northern Ireland and Irish Sea coastal regions of Wales. But don't take the graphics too literally. Any rain we do see through this evening will be very light and intermittent, so many places not seeing much at all. But as we go through the second half of this evening and into tonight, the rain will start to blossom somewhat, so turning slightly more persistent and heavier, particularly across southern and central parts of Scotland. A few millimetres of rain perhaps by the end of the night here. Otherwise, England and Wales remaining quite dry and increasingly warm and humid, and one comfortable night for sleeping compared to last night. Temperatures for some not falling below 18 degrees Celsius. And it's here we're likely to see a pretty hot day on Monday. Any cloud will be quite thin, so we'll see plenty of sunshine, and temperatures by the afternoon will be into the 30s for some of us, perhaps 35 Celsius in the southeast of England. One or two showers breaking out by the afternoon for Wales and Western England, but the wettest weather across northern Scotland, where it will feel quite disappointingly cool for August.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
We're celebrating a golden summer with your chance to win a real gold bar. That's right, a fine gold bullion bar worth over £5,000 could be yours. We're also going to make sure your finances are fabulous with £60,000 in tax-free cash. For a chance to win, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power. Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
We can allow. You think we can allow?
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, may I be amongst the first to wish you a good afternoon. Sarah Coleridge reflects in her poem The Months that August brings the sheaves of corn, then the harvest home is born. You're most welcome to another bountiful hour of culture, current affairs and politics here on Sunday with Michael Portillo. Andy Burnham says that he wants mayors and regions to have more control over spending. My panel will discuss whether that would represent an improvement. On Wednesday, small boats brought 752 migrants to Britain. The former Independent Chief Inspector of Borders and Immigration, John Vine, will join me to discuss that. Stefan Kyriazis will take his position on stage through stage door left to review Car Man and Cyrano. And what have the heat waves meant for Britain's farmers? All of that, and indeed much more, but first, news headlines from Sophia Wensler.
Michael, thank you and good afternoon. Your headlines at 12 o'clock. Donald Trump says he has cancelled a major attack on Iran because a peace deal may be close. The US president made the announcement on Truth Social that he had paused the assault on Tehran, subject to being able to rapidly make a deal, which would include the immediate opening of the Strait of Hormuz and an end to Iran's nuclear threat. Mr. Trump said the decision to cancel the attack had been taken alongside Israel. However, he also warned the Iranian regime that the US remained locked and loaded and ready to go. Iran has not yet responded to the US president's announcement. The new Chancellor has issued a stark warning to supermarkets, urging them to stop price gouging as the Iran war continues to hit prices. John Healey said he will not allow them to take the public for a ride as a result of the Middle East crisis. He said he would be watching closely for any suggestion that customers are being ripped off, either when shopping for essential groceries or when filling up their car at the petrol pump. It comes after the Chancellor confirmed he will deliver his first budget on October the 28th, promising a plan built on what he calls fiscal discipline. 53,000 of the 60,000 migrants who crossed into the small Spanish enclave of Ceuta have now returned to Morocco, according to Spanish authorities. The sudden surge of arrivals have left 86 people dead. It's led to division between some European politicians, with EU ministers due to hold an emergency meeting on Tuesday to discuss the situation. It comes amid reports that people smuggling gangs are cutting the price of channel crossings to Britain, hoping to cash in on Europe's latest crisis. Traffickers are reportedly offering places on small boats for as little as £500 after the unprecedented surge of migrants into the enclave this week. Rupert Lowe has made a public offer to Nigel Farage to work together to unite the right. In a video address posted on X, the Restore Britain leader made a plea to the Reform UK leader to put their differences aside for the sake of the British people.
The country we both love is changing beyond recognition. Millions of people feel like strangers in their own communities. They work hard, pay their taxes, obey the law, and yet they see no fair reward for any of that. They see a patriotic right hopelessly divided. They see hard work punished and indolence rewarded. That is why today I'm reaching out to put personalities and our past disagreements aside for the good of the country we all so want to succeed.
It comes after the results for the Greater Manchester Mayor yesterday saw the vote on the right split three ways, with Reform on 21%, Restore on 8.7% and the Tories behind on 7.7%. Now, some breaking news. At least 5 people have died and 41 are missing after a ferry caught fire off the coast of an Indonesian island. That's according to officials there. The ferry, which was carrying 271 passengers and crew members, caught fire off Indonesia's Madura Island. That's according to the country's search and rescue agency. 3 people have been killed and 21 injured after a homemade bomb exploded at a restaurant in Moscow. Russian state media said an improvised explosive device was detonated by an unnamed woman who allegedly smuggled it into the Italian restaurant on Kudrinskaya Square shortly after 8 p.m. local time. There are unconfirmed reports that a birthday celebration for a Russian general was taking place there at the time. The Prince of Wales has paid tribute to former British Army and Royal Marine soldier and renowned mountaineer Nirmal Purja, who died in an avalanche in Pakistan. The Alpine Club of Pakistan confirmed this morning that the body of the renowned British Nepali mountaineer was recovered on Broad Peak in Pakistan, about 5,700 metres up the mountain. Prince William said he was truly saddened by Purja's death, praising him for serving with distinction before becoming one of the world's greatest mountaineers. Soprano star Vincent Pastor has died at the age of 80. The actor, whose portrayal of Salvatore Bonpensiero won him acclaim and died at his home in New York. His co-stars from the HBO series have since paid tribute to him as a beloved friend and collaborator. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Michael.
Thank you, Sophia Winsler. The new Prime Minister says he wants more decisions to be taken locally, but he's nationalising rail companies and there's talk of drastically reducing the number of police forces. Are decisions made locally better decisions? Might we not do better to establish national strategic control over things like airport runways and high-speed rail? Well, my panel has returned, and to remind you, they are the Daily Mail journalist Letters Bromowski and the Labour peer Baroness Hayter. Diane, do you believe that decisions made locally are better decisions?
Yes and no. I think there's 2 problems. Obviously, anything based close to where it happened is likely to be better. But that doesn't necessarily mean by a mayor. I think what's really important is that the consumers or the users are involved in decision-making. And if that is done better locally, that's a good thing. But it shouldn't just stop with mayors. It's important that they involve the people concerned. The second problem I have is whether we will then be able to have, get a move away from a postcode lottery. I'm not sure we'd want whether it was social care or the health care to be different in one part of the country than another. So although the delivery of a service might be made locally, I think there's a problem if we don't have national standards which make sure that everyone has an equal chance. And if we start giving back people's an area's business rates, that might benefit the areas with big business rates, but it may not help the more deprived areas. And we've got to make sure that we do treat people equally wherever they live in the country.
Again, we've been here often before, and I paid lip service to this principle myself. With Michael Hazeltine years ago, we had a great thing called City Challenge, where we had a great pot of money and we gave it away competitively to local areas that had the best ideas about how to spend that money. But actually, I wonder really whether local decisions are better decisions. I mean, for example, do we think that local politicians are better than national politicians? In some places, they're pretty good. In some places, I would say they're pretty mediocre. And expecting to get, better decisions out of mediocre people seems to me rather optimistic.
Well, I think it depends whether they need to be mediocre. I mean, to some extent, the bigger the decision you give people, then you're more likely to attract the sort of people who would want to do that and who would aspire to be able to take big decisions, as we saw with Andy Burnham, an ex-cabinet minister, realising that there was powers in Manchester, he was then prepared to move. And I think, going back a long time, we might have had better people in Scotland had we had the Parliament there, whereas it used to be that the brightest and best of Scotland would come down to be MPs. So I think to some extent the quality of what the size of the decision you're able to take will attract better politicians.
Letters, do you think that better decisions are made locally? I mean, that's quite a provoking remark there that Diana's made. I mean, does one believe, for example, that Scotland has been better governed since it had its own parliament?
Well, I think a lot of that comes down more to the politician than the decisions being made and the people that we're inviting into our politics, I don't think you can simply say, just because someone's local to the area, they're going to make a better decision. I think that comes down to the person, the politician that has been elected to the post. And I mean, I'm slightly with Dan in the sense of I agree and I disagree with this. There are some decisions which I fear the central government is going to have to impose on certain areas. When we look at things like our environmental targets, a lot of local areas aren't going to want to have the pylons in their local areas, and those politicians aren't going to want to make those tough decisions. And so in those cases, central government does have to force it on them. And the similar thing goes for housing targets. We've been trying to meet housing targets for years and constantly failing because it runs into planning issues with the locals who don't want the new houses built there. So that has to come from central government sometimes making those tough decisions and saying we need to impose them here. But I do agree that, you would hope that a local politician born and raised in the area is going to know the people better and can make those right decisions.
Is it even clear whether the government believes in localism? I gave the examples that we're nationalising the railways. I think the government's quite tempted to nationalise water companies. It's said that we ought to have fewer police authorities, so that would take policing, further away from localities. So it seems to me that the Prime Minister says he believes in localism, but when it suits him.
You can see the obvious contradictions in the things he's saying at the moment. He has been putting this flagpole in, saying he supports devolution, and a lot of his career has been founded on the fact that he became the Manchester mayor when it was given much greater power, and it allowed him to do the things that made him much more well known. But like you say, he's trying to do things like bring greater police forces together or nationalise the railways, and that's something that we've already seen has happened before, and it didn't work, and it had huge issues with chronic underinvestment. I mean, a lot of the things we've spoken about today are all surrounded by money. Where is he going to get this funding from when he nationalises the railways, if he pushes that through, or with the social care reform we spoke about in the previous hour? All of these things will require billions and billions of pounds that he simply does not have.
Diane, this is an idea that could be discredited if it becomes associated with much more spending. I see from projections that were, dug out by newspapers this last week, that we're expecting pretty large increases in council tax over the coming years. It's also been made clear that if mayors get this devolved power, one of the things they won't be able to do with the devolved power is to reduce taxes. So, one way or another, this might be a way simply of increasing public expenditure. Is there a danger then that the idea gets discredited if it's associated with that?
Look, I'm an absolute loyalist, so I wouldn't normally say a thing about the Prime Minister, but I did notice one of his first things was to put a cap on bus fares nationally, which is quite interesting.
Yes.
He didn't give local... But, my view is that the problem with council tax is that it's not a progressive tax. So you pay the same, you could have two people in, adjacent houses, and you pay the same council tax, and one of them could have, 4 or 5 earners in it, one of them could have just one person in it.
We came up with a solution to this. It was called the community
Yeah,
charge.
I know that. That didn't work either. but that is an indication of the problem. I mean, the great thing about income tax is that actually it is a progressive taxation, and it does take account of circumstances. So I think if we're going to rely more on council tax, then we have to find a way of making sure that is more progressive.
You agree that it looks as if that's the way we're going, that we're going to... Because the government has constrained itself so much, they can't raise income tax, supposedly, or national insurance or VAT or whatever, we have to look for other places, and council tax is one of them.
And that happens more in other countries. I mean, in a number of other countries, there are far more local taxes. And the advantage of that is that then people know what their tax is being paid for. I mean, at the moment, it's really hard to know because they think it's being paid for education. Most of that's coming out of a national budget anyway. So it's really hard for... And local authorities spend most of their money on social care, which again comes out of a national budget. So people don't see the connection between what they're paying in their council tax. Now, if we move more so that they can see the difference that the council tax pays, I think then, the accountability comes in and the acceptance of paying more. But as I say, my worry is, can we redistribute between Manchester, which they may say they're poor compared with London, but they are rich compared with many of our rural communities or our coastal communities. We need to redistribute to people wherever they happen to live. So I think that's going to be a challenge.
That is, whether you do or don't believe in localism, whether the government does or doesn't believe in localism, do you think localism is a popular policy? Is it shrewd politically to pursue this?
I do, actually, and I think because we've been so centralised for so long that I think, going slightly back to your point as well, is that people don't necessarily understand what central government does and what their local government is meant to do. And I do think that if it does become more local and councils get more powers to do actual things, there does come that accountability factor, and a lot more people will then be more, hopefully, invested in their local community and invested in the things that their money can go directly into, because you can't be blaming the government for maybe your bins being taken out and things like that when that should be coming from the council. So I do think it is a popular policy, and actually, yeah, I am supportive of a localism that works and is constructive.
But Dan, you can't have accountability unless the mayors are able to vary the rate of tax, I would argue. There used to be a sort of accountability. Do you remember there was huge competition between councils? The Conservatives claim that Wandsworth and Westminster had the lowest council tax in the country. Of course, it's very, very complicated because the amount of grant that you got from central government varied enormously, and city centres with big social problems tended to get much more money. But we can't really move towards accountability unless a mayor or an equivalent leader in a region can say, I did this efficiently, I gave you this much service, and I took this much off your tax. Or I decided I was going to give you more services, and therefore I'm putting up your tax. No accountability unless you get to something like that.
Well, the other problem is it's very hard to know what are the demands in that area. You go down to the south coast and you will have a very high population of elderly people who've retired there, and therefore the demands on local services will be enormous. And so it's, you're going to need to help those areas either with a very fluid population or with a very elderly population. And I think you're right. It's very hard to say, well, this council's doing really well if they happen to have a lot of elderly people, and therefore the demand on all sorts of services, from assisted buses to all of that. So the other problem is that where you have an elected mayor, that's one thing, but where you have a leader who is not directly elected, then it's much harder to see where the accountability is anyway. So I think there's a lot of thought going to go into this, because it's quite hard otherwise to change the leader. You can change a mayor, but you can't necessarily change the leader.
Do you have any feel for whether this country is any more capable of reform? I have my doubts. The previous subject we were discussing was social care. I mean, it's evident you can change the system, but I just wonder whether the machine work sufficiently well now to move us from position A to position B. You look at some countries around the world, for example, Australia at one point had this massive reform of its health service. And I'm just sort of gobsmacked in admiration at how a country changes a system. Because Britain just doesn't seem very good at changing systems.
No, it definitely doesn't. And I would love to sit here and give another answer and say, we can, do this change. But I mean, a lot of what we've seen with our, 7 prime ministers in a decade proves that we want change to happen instantaneously, and it doesn't. And we do have to commit to long-term change. And I think that's where we struggle, particularly with things like our infrastructure. I mean, HS2 is the classic example of us having so many issues with our planning and our long-term investment, our long-term getting things through and getting them over the line, and that completely fell apart. And that was just one train line. We have to have more conviction in what we do, and I do hope that we can truly reform, because we need it, and we need it across the board, whether it's social care, whether it's the NHS, whether it's just our planning. We need serious change in this country, and I hope that we can eventually do that with this government.
Thank you very much, panel. Lettice Bronowski and Baroness Hayter, who did 3 shifts today instead of the normal 2, so particularly grateful. Coming up, on Wednesday, small boats brought 752 migrants to Britain. This is Sunday with Michael Portillo, only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Here at GB News, we made a promise to tell your stories. And on the 6th of August, we're marking 5 years of doing exactly that.
Celebrate with us by having your say. Join in the debates live on TV and radio.
And meeting your favourite presenters across the country, from Leeds to Aberdeen, from Belfast to Barry Island.
Plus, join me in Essex for our biggest live show of the year. Scan the QR code or visit gbnews.com/celebrate. Terms and conditions apply.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5.
You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah.
Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter? So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way. You will not want to miss it, trust me.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
The Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong Tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. A record for this year was broken on Wednesday when small boats brought 750 migrants to Britain, the largest number in a single day. The week also brought the shocking news of those 60,000 migrants who broke into the Spanish and EU territory of Ceuta from Morocco. The former independent Chief Inspector of Borders and Immigration, John Vine, joins me now. Hello, John. Welcome to GB News.
Hello, Michael.
Despite the news of this record last week, 752 migrants arriving by boat, the figures for this year have been lower than previous years. Why has that been the case, do you think?
Well, I think the British government and the French have worked together more effectively this year. There's been obviously a massive injection of public money. Was it £600 million spent on the renewed deal with France? We've managed to get a maritime police unit now created to get into the water and stop the taxi boats. There's greater intelligence gathering. There's greater use of drones and surveillance. So I think that is having an effect. But at the end of the day, remember that in 2018, when this all started, the then Home Secretary cancelled his summer holidays and came back because there were 299 people crossed the channel in this way. So I think before we hang the flags out, I think we should give it a few more months and see how we go. In effect, Wednesday, on a smaller scale, was our Ceuta moment, really.
Yes, I'm certainly not hanging out any flags. What I was hoping to do was to identify good and effective practice, identify things that are working so that we could intensify the activities that are working. Do you see what I mean? So
yes, I do. And I think one of the frustrations, I think probably for border force people, is that the government really doesn't tell us what's working. So they announce a series of initiatives, for example, the one in, one out scheme, but we don't think that's working terribly well. But we'd really have to try and guess what we think they're doing, which is working. And it's very difficult to hold the government to accountable when they don't give us any metrics by which we can hold them accountable against.
Now, that's a very interesting point. But also, you'd think that if the government wanted to take any credit, if it wanted to hang out some flags, then it would say, the number has come down this year, and the reason is that we've done this and it's succeeding, and we intend to do more of it because it can succeed more in the future. That would be quite an interesting way of proceeding, wouldn't it?
Well, I think it'd be a sensible way to proceed. I mean, I'm a former chief constable. If I was reducing crime in my police area, I told people that we were reducing crime. Because unless I tell them, first of all, they would just look at headlines in newspapers and assume the worst. So you have to get the message across if you're doing something well. And also, you've got to bear in mind that your staff who are working hard on the front line, I think, would like to be recognised for the work they're doing. And the figures look encouraging. We're talking about 40% down on 2025. I think at this rate, we'll end up with the same number that we had in 2021, which is about 28 to 30,000. But I do worry about what we saw in the Spanish enclave, because I think it's going to encourage organised crime to, they'll see it as an opportunity.
Yes, we were discussing that earlier. I mean, those pictures are bound to have a very big impact on possible migrants and indeed on criminals. Now, on that very point then, you're talking about these crossings being illegal, you're talking about organised crime. Why is it then the French can't simply stop the boats leaving their shores if they have good reason to believe that a crime is being committed?
Well, that's a very good question as well. I mean, they do have a different setup of law, of course, and they have highly unionised police forces as well. And it looks to me as though, when we looked at was it Chris Philp who was on the beach on Wednesday talking to a couple of gendarmes, and they looked surprised that he actually asked them the question, why aren't you intervening? And he said, and the officer said, well, we've been told to tell them it's unsafe, but then not do anything. Now, I can't understand how that is in line with what we've been told between the British government, that the British government has agreed with the French. It seems that there's an inconsistency of application of whatever agreements have been put in place. And I think what was interesting, although I've just said we don't hear much from the Home Office, it was interesting that the following day, Border Force officials apparently were reported as being outraged and frustrated at what they were seeing. So I think there needs to be a coming together of some operational group, which must exist between the British and the French, to try and thrash out why there isn't consistency of application by the French authorities of what is supposed to be happening.
And I just know that some of our viewers will be saying the lesson that should be learned from Ceuta, the Spanish enclave, is that you don't welcome people and give them food and accommodation and so on. Indeed, you stop them getting that. That's what they've done in Ceuta. So, I mean, if a boat came ashore on the English coast and a cordon was put around it such that those people could not venture further into Britain, why would that not work? That's what I think many GB News viewers will want to know.
Well, I think it would work if there was an immediate return policy with France. I mean, the one thing about the one-in, one-out scheme was for the first time the French accepted a principle of having people back, although I don't think it's worked in anything other than penny numbers, so it's not a deterrent. But there has to be political will, Michael, for that sort of thing to happen. And there just isn't the political will to put in place some sort of deterrent to try and address the demand. I mean, what you saw in Spain was a mass breach of border control. But many of those people who were interviewed were saying, look, we just want a better life for ourselves. We want to go to Spain and Northern Europe. So unless there's some form of thought given to a deterrent, then we'll just continue to see the same trade being played out on a weekly basis at whatever level the criminals are unable to in terms of avoiding law enforcement at whatever level they can.
I think you may have put your finger on something there when you talk about a lack of political will. Thank you very much indeed for your views, John Vine.
Thanks,
coming
Michael.
up, thank you. Coming up, Stefan Kyriazis will take his position on stage through Studio Door Left, and he'll be reviewing Carman and Cyrano. More news headlines now from Sophia Wensler.
Michael, thank you. Your headlines at 12:29. Donald Trump says he has cancelled a major attack on Iran because a peace deal may be close. The US president made the announcement on Truth Social that he had paused the assault on Tehran, subject to being able to rapidly make a deal. The new Chancellor has issued a stark warning to supermarkets, urging them to stop price gouging as a result of the Middle East crisis. John Healey said he would be watching closely for any suggestion that customers are being ripped off, either when shopping for essential groceries or when filling up their car at the petrol pumps. At least 5 people have died and 41 are missing after a ferry caught fire off the coast of an Indonesian island. The ferry, which was carrying 271 passengers and crew members, caught fire off Indonesia's Madura Island, the country's search and rescue agency has said. 53,000 of the 60,000 migrants who crossed into the small Spanish enclave of Ceuta have now returned to Morocco, according to Spanish authorities. It comes as 2,000 people have crossed the English Channel in small boats since Andy Burnham became Prime Minister. Those are your headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB Digital Radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, temperatures are set to rise once again through today and especially tomorrow, but plenty of warm and hazy sunshine out there today. Not dry for everyone. There is still 1 or 2 showers courtesy of this weak occluded front across the very far northeast of Scotland, and out towards the west, this area of low pressure is bringing a bit more cloud into parts of Northern Ireland and the Irish Sea as we go into this afternoon. So possibly the sunshine turning quite weak and hazy here in particular, but for most, blue skies will prevail with plenty of sunshine, just a little bit of wispy high cloud in in places. Now, a warmer day to come compared to yesterday. Temperatures widely in the mid-20s in England and Wales and possibly close to 30 degrees in the London area. But across northern Scotland, still a little bit on the breezy side and quite cool, and there'll still be 1 or 2 showers around for Shetland and Orkney in particular, but these won't be as numerous or as heavy as they were on Saturday, so largely dry by this evening here. A largely fine end to the day elsewhere across mainland Scotland too. Notice on the graphic some bits and pieces of blue indicating rain across Northern Ireland and Irish Sea coastal regions of Wales. But don't take the graphics too literally. Any rain we do see through this evening will be very light and intermittent, so many places not seeing much at all. But as we go through the second half of this evening and into tonight, the rain will start to blossom somewhat, so turning slightly more persistent and heavier, particularly across southern and central parts of Scotland. A few millimetres of rain perhaps by the end of the night here. Otherwise, England and Wales remaining quite dry and increasingly warm and humid, a more uncomfortable night for sleeping compared to last night. Temperatures for some not falling below 18 degrees Celsius. And it's here where we're likely to see a pretty hot day on Monday. Any cloud will be quite thin, so we'll see plenty of sunshine, and temperatures by the afternoon will be into the 30s for some of us, perhaps 35 Celsius in the southeast of England. 1 or 2 showers breaking out by the afternoon for Wales and Western England, but the wettest weather across northern Scotland, where it will feel quite disappointingly cool for August.
Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howard. This is the show where each week we see what's happening in the world of culture, current affairs and politics.
First we'll say, welcome to the UK. Oh, thank you.
And we're not afraid to use our free speech so that you can use yours.
It's not controversial in the slightest to anyone who hasn't lost their mind.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
Hello, welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. Stefan Kyriazis and his trusty companion, Rafa, join me now to share their theatre reviews of the week. Hello, Rafa and Stefan.
Hello.
Carman?
Yes. Now, I'd like to say that you know I'm no prude, Michael. I'm no fuddy-duddy. Very measured in everything I do, no big reactions. But I was horrified by the filth I saw on stage. 5 or 10 minutes into this show, there were naked mechanics showering on stage. The barefaced cheek, quite literally of it, got a big reaction. Absolute filth, I tell you.
Literally naked.
Completely naked. Completely naked. We did not complain. There is a lovely trailer for you, sadly with no shower scene. Or maybe there is, but we'll have a look.
Right, so to get something straight, this is the music of Bizet, as in the opera. It is a ballet, however, and it's by Matthew Bourne.
Yes.
And instead of being called Carmen, it's called Carman, because it's got something to do with mechanics.
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect. That's my sort of bad punning in the title. Terry Davis has reworked the score, so all the bits you know and can hum. But it's good. I mean, it really, the whole thing has elements of West Side Story. So there's an element of Bernstein to the music, but even more modern than that. So you just get these pulsing rhythms. Choreography as well owes a great debt to Jerome Robbins, but in a very loving way. It's balletic, but incredibly muscular and visceral. I mean, a lot of the time the guys are in jeans and boots, but phenomenal control. It's almost like gymnastics or something where they take great big leaps over tables, but they almost seem to slow down because they're controlling it so much. It's absolutely phenomenal. The story is just a flip. So instead of Carmen, the seductress, we have a drifter. And he blows into this tiny Midwest town, and there's a mechanic's garage and a diner there, and a very unhappily married, gorgeous young wife. He creates chaos. He seduces her. He also seduces... Oops, sorry.
Rafa reacting.
Sorry, yes, Rafa's very excited. He seduces a very sweet young mechanic. absolute carnage. Act 1 ends in a very violent murder. I mean, it is cinematic. And Act 2 ends... I've seen this before. Gunshot rang out, and I still couldn't remember who shot who. I was again on the edge of my seat. This is phenomenal theatre, and also credit to Matthew Bourne, but also to the performers. Cordelia Braithwaite is one of their sort of premier dancers. I saw her on the night I went, and then Will Bozier and Harrison Dowsall are alternating the roles of Luca, the drifter. They act with every part of them. They act with their faces, and there's vocalising, so shouts and screams and come on, or whatever it might be.
Is there much dialogue?
No direct dialogue, but in the fights, they're like, get him, or that sort of thing. So just exclamations. It all adds to the energy. It is so immersive. It's so visceral and vivid. It's absolutely stunning. I cannot recommend it highly enough. It's on at Sadler's Wells to the end of August, but then huge national tour continues until the end of November. If you're a newbie, if you think dance is not for you, or it's a bit scary, a bit poncy, whatever it might be, this is everything. I mean, the pictures are showing it. It's explosive, exciting, beautiful, devastating. Go and see it.
No, wonderful. What a review. Now, we're going to talk about Cyrano next. The fellow with the large nose. Cyrano de Bergerac, no less.
Indeed.
Are you going to give a good review?
May we? Well, it's 1897, and you know what I'm going to say about 1897, don't you, Michael?
No, I don't.
What I was going to say is actually, it's a verse poem from the period, so that's often a tricky thing to do in modern day. You can do it in a very traditional way, or it often creaks when the people try and update it. There was
Anthony Burgess did a fantastic translation.
Okay. This one is a sort of flowing modern one between Simon Evans, the director and co-writer, and then Debris Stevenson, or Debris maybe, fabulous. So it has modern rhythms. There's a wonderful part with the poet, jeweler himself, Cyrano, and with Roxanne. And they have this running game where they have an entire conversation where every word must start with the same letter, whether it's B or S or whatever. It's exhilarating to watch. It's gorgeous. Adrian Lester, I've always thought was a very good actor. I've never seen him on stage like this. He's astounding. We've got a little clip of the trailer to show you guys.
I have my name, sir. Have you seen Cyrano? Philosopher, a rebel, a writer. Call me Cupid. Madame Roxanne is the raging fire.
Be my forever faithful friend.
I am like a seedling sown in soft soil.
You make it sound like hard work.
So you see the nose.
Yeah.
It's not comedic. It's not ridiculous. It is just a gigantic hooter. He even does that fantastic cartoon noise where they go kind of... It's electrifying. He's Quicksilver on stage. And also, there is so much melancholy and pathos beneath all of this. I mean, those kind of original lines are, some of us are forged in mockery. That's what he lives with. He has so much self-loathing and self-doubt around his appearance, even though he is the finest man, the finest fighter, the greatest wit, the greatest poet. You know, he's extraordinary.
And the nose appears to exclude him from being with the girl that he loves.
Or does it? And is it his own issues, and is it his own hiding? He says, I have hidden from myself my whole life. And this is a running theme. But what I love here is Roxanne, Cordelia Braithwaite, matches him toe-to-toe. She's phenomenal as well. She's not a sort of blushing, young ingenue flower. She absolutely is his match. And she is sort of playing games with herself and others as well. She moans the whole time that, all these men adoring me, it's so boring. I want substance. And then she falls for the pretty face and then demands that he woos her with flowery words, which obviously Cyrano does for him. The key for me for this one was the young chap, and I have to look it up, Levi Brown. Levi Brown, amazing playing Christian.
Young man.
He can often be a little bit silly but sweet. This one, he brings so much grace, so much dignity to the role, and he's a farmer in this one, and he just, hands in the soil, and he just says this beautiful line where he's like, I want something simple, plain and small. Why isn't that enough? He just wants to be hands in the earth, and he feels lost in this world, and it constantly brings up, this sort of dodgy catfishing element to you're deceiving this woman, making her think someone's something they're not. It's all addressed beautifully. The language still sings. The performances are extraordinary. The staging is wonderful. The war scenes are really quite devastating.
Where till when?
This one it was at the RSC before, and now it's on in London at the Noel Coward until September the 5th. Again, so far, 2 5-star shows, 2 great shows that are in theory, higher end of art, but hugely accessible for everybody. Cannot recommend it highly enough again.
I just want you to have a moment at the end now to make a tribute, isn't it, really?
So Marianella Nunez, Royal Ballet principal. She's been there since she was 16, made a principal at 20. But she was dancing lead roles back in Argentina at 14 and 15. She's incredible. We've got some images. She's had a bunch of shows this week, finishing today, unfortunately. And it's all about reflecting her journey, her love of ballet. She is not a modern ballet innovator. She's very classical, but that does not mean stuffing. She just brings beauty and grace. It's exquisite what she does with phenomenal power and control. She brought in so many principals. It's awash with principals, and it's a sort of bonbon mix of just lovely little modern pieces, not too modern, danced by other people. And then she does the Corsair with Vadim Montegirov, Tchaikovsky, Pas de Deux. I think, again, Jerome Robbins bringing the link through. It was just exquisite ballet, very much one sort of ballet, but I loved it. And I just, she said she's going to keep going for at least another 5 years, and I would be there every single time. So, and coming up next, they've got Carlos Acosta, the other great icon. He's coming in next week with his own show. So just treats everywhere.
Yeah, it's been an extraordinary summer, at least, for me. Thank you very much indeed, Rafa. Thank you very much indeed, Stefan. Coming up, what have the recent sunny conditions meant for Britain's farmers? This is Sunday with Michael Portillo, only on GB News.
Be nice to escape the grey.
Clear skies, here we come.
As clear as our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hi there. The hot, sunny and dry theme continues across most of the Mediterranean through the next few days. There will be a few isolated thunderstorms, particularly for Portugal on Monday, but elsewhere across the Mediterranean, barely a cloud in the sky for many coastal regions, and it will feel very hot in that strong August sunshine. Temperatures comfortably into the 30s and approaching 40 degrees Celsius in the hottest spots. The outlook for the rest of the week, well, generally the settled sunny theme continues with temperatures once again in the high 30s for some.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Should James Bond stay white and male?
Yes, I think that's probably the best course of action. If you think about it, Amazon have taken over Bond about a year ago, and they're a big company, aren't they? And this is a risk, isn't it? They don't want to be seen to cast their first James Bond in anything other than the most popular Bond to everybody. So if you're a casting director, like Debbie McWilliams has said, the previous one, I suppose it'd be who would be the most popular? What's the safest thing to do? So I think, in other iterations, there's nothing to say he couldn't be anything other than white, but this is the first one back, so I think it would be the safe thing to do. And it has to be a man. That's non-negotiable. I think audiences would instantly be complaining, and they want as little controversy going into this new film as they can.
The People's Channel. Martin Daubney. Weekdays from 3 p.m.
With the football, a row has erupted. A racism row again, this time at a Kent secondary school after pupils' children were allegedly told to scrub painted England flags from their arms because, you've guessed it, they were deemed as racist. Is this the woke flag monitors simply spoiling everybody's fun?
Now, look, if we are going to police flags, that's clearly a problem. I think there are lots of people who feel negatively towards the England flag because of what it's represented in the past, and that's a real shame. But it's nice to see that new generations, I'm the son of immigrants, and I don't feel that. I haven't inherited that, and that's really positive. Look, so we should be able to, especially during a football match, fly that flag with pride and enjoy it.
I know that part of the world a little bit. I travelled to Broadstairs, Thanet, Sandwich. You see the Union flag, and particularly the England flag, everywhere.
Yes.
Even under normal circumstances, you see the England flag being proudly flown. So this is completely insane.
The People's Channel. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
There was a Ryanair flight from Thessaloniki in Greece, and a part of the plane hit the window and pulled it out. And so this man, a 61-year-old Serbian man, was sucked out of the window. And his wife, she says that she was desperately holding onto his legs to keep him inside the plane for 5 minutes. Wow. It was horrendous. Apparently the aircraft did eventually land normally and passengers were safe and a replacement airline was sent. He was taken to hospital with friction burns. It was a part of the propeller had come loose from the engine and it had hit the window, and that's what had taken the window out. So it wasn't as though it was thought to be loose in the first place. But can you imagine?
No.
I mean,
I don't want to.
Unbelievable.
I'm
not a good flyer, I have to admit. This terrifies me.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. More than half of England is officially in exceptionally serious drought conditions, with farmers warning that it's too hot to harvest. There are warnings that Britain will have to rely heavily on imports. Wholesale prices are shooting up, tomatoes by more than 60%, iceberg lettuce by 90%, and potatoes by more than 40%. So I'm joined now by arable farmer Andrew Ward. Hello, Andrew, welcome. I can see the countryside.
Hello, Michael.
I can see the countryside behind you there. What is it that you produce on your farm?
So what you can actually see behind me is a crop of baked beans, and this is the only crop of beans or baked beans that is from a British variety. There are other varieties growing, so this is quite a unique backdrop. But at the minute, we're growing wheat, barley, sugar beet, and these beans. So 4 different crops at the minute, and the weather is having a huge impact, or has had a huge impact on all of them.
The first thing I assume is that the time for harvest comes much earlier than it otherwise would. Is that in itself a problem?
Yeah, well, it's not really a problem as such, because sometimes it can be beneficial, but you're quite right, Michael, that this year we're about a month earlier than normal, which is astonishing, really. So we finished our wheat harvest here a few days ago, and to finish it in July, when we normally don't start till the middle of August or the 10th of August, is quite astounding. But the problem we've got is that because it's early, that's not a problem, but the weather has made it early, and it's the weather that's caused the problem. So the first heat wave we had in May was, even though we didn't know it at the time, was catastrophic, because it took the plant from a vegetative stage into the next stage, into the reproduction stage. And of course, the problem we've got went to the ripening stage, and when you do that, it kills off the plant from growing. And then we had another heat wave in June. And in Lincolnshire, here on my farm, the last rain we had was June the 11th, and even that was only a small amount. So you can't grow food and you can't grow crops without water.
So are you aware, from the crops you've been harvesting, that your yield is low this year?
Yeah, very much so. All our crops go over a weighbridge. We've got our own weighbridge in the yard, so every single load is weighed and tested for quality, so we know exactly where we are. And we, if you're looking in metric terms, we are about 2 tons per hectare, so about 1 ton an acre down across the farm. But I must say, this year our crops looked absolutely fantastic coming out of the winter, probably the best I've ever seen them. And it's really frustrating and quite upsetting to have top quality crops not perform when you get the combine through them. And of course, it's the weather that's done that, the lack of rain and the heat waves that's done it. And there's nothing we can do about that.
Looking further to the future, is there anything that can be done? I mean, whether in terms of irrigation system, different practices, or indeed different crops?
Yeah, well, I mean, the different crops one is interesting, and that's why we're trying these beans behind us to try and look at different crops, because at the minute, all our baked beans are imported from Canada, America, Ethiopia and China. So, but for the water situation, we had a very wet winter, and Lincolnshire, you might remember, has suffered a lot of flooding over the last 3 or 4 years, really bad flooding. But what we need to do is we need to create some infrastructure so that when we do have a lot of wet weather, we can hold the water in in big areas and then pull it back onto the fields and onto the crops when we need it. But the problem we've got here is the return from these crops that I'm growing is so small. At the minute, we can't justify the expenditure on irrigation because it's massively expensive buying the rain guns and all the equipment we need to put the water on. And the infrastructure, building a reservoir here on cereals and on the crops we grow just isn't viable. You need to be root crops and vegetables, the very high value crops, to make it viable to have your own water.
And what are other farmers saying that you speak to? I mean, those who farm fruit, those who farm vegetables, what sort of problems are they having?
Yeah, it's all the same. I mean, a lot of the people that have got vegetables, they've got their own water. So near me in Lincolnshire, you've got the fens, you've got really top quality fen land here that grows 2 crops a year on the soil. And Lincolnshire produces around about 30% of the vegetables for the whole country. And the infrastructure on some of these farms, they've got it. Now, fruit I'm not quite so aware of because the fruit is across in the west, but I do know that it is being affected as well from the lack of water and the lack of rain. But it's just, and the problem is, you mentioned it, Michael, at the start, about importing the crops and importing food. And we really need to value the food that we're growing here and put more emphasis on home-produced food, because just relying on imports and saying, oh, don't worry, if we can't produce it here, we'll bring it in from abroad. It's the wrong attitude to take, and we've had this attitude for years, and we need to change.
I'm sure it is the wrong attitude. And by the way, this heat wave is very, very broadly spread, and we don't have time today to inquire as to what problems farmers are having across the continent of Europe. But it's a pretty fair bet that many of them are having problems similar to yours. So relying on abroad is not a particularly good strategy. Anyway, Andrew, I want to wish you well with what's left of your harvest, and I hope your yields, at least in seasons to come, will be better than the ones you're looking at just now. Thank you very much, Andrew.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you indeed to all my guests for joining me today. It's been a couple of hours of really good conversation. I will be back at the same time next week, and I'm looking forward to that very much. The next programme on GB News is called The Weekend, and it's with Dawn Neeson. Dawn, what's coming up?
Michael, thank you so much. Good to see you. Loving the outfit today, very Harry Potter. We've got a great story for you. Cut price channel crossings as smugglers are cashing in on that Spain invasion. Also, this will annoy you, the 7-7 bomber given £10,000 of taxpayers' cash for his mental health. You won't believe what you're going to hear. All of that coming up after the weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hi again and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, as we go into the new working week, the heat is set to build once again, turning humid for all of us and pretty hot on Monday in the south. But there will be some rain as well. Coastal, this area of low pressure just gradually drifting in from the Atlantic. And ahead of that, look at this hot air that we start to import from the near continent. So a very hot day for some on Monday. Out there this evening, though, that area of low pressure is already starting to show its hand, so bits and pieces of rain across Northern Ireland and some northern and western parts of the UK as we go into the early hours of Monday morning. Perhaps even 1 or 2 showers for the Midlands and Eastern England, but not a guarantee by any means. For England and Wales, though, it's going to be an increasingly warm and humid night, quite uncomfortable for sleeping, and temperatures perhaps in urban areas not falling much below 17 or 18 degrees Celsius. It won't be quite as warm or as humid further north, though, particularly in northern Scotland, where actually there'll be some clear skies as we go into the early hours and to start on Monday. So some brightness perhaps for the north of Scotland, but we will run into